Valorant studio head Anna Donlon has told players, quote, to play something else. We won't miss you. Well, she announced a number of new player behavior policies that Riot Games and Valorant will be rolling out here in the near future. Before we get to this, I'd like to ask you, please hit that subscribe button, hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss any of our future videos here at the Trent Report. Wrote this up over at thatparkplace.com, and they published this video to YouTube. It's also on X, likely on Facebook and their other social media platforms as well. And she introduces the video by introducing herself and then talking kind of about some of the techniques that they are using to police player behavior in the game. She says since launching she used Valorant with the addition of voice, especially with the addition of voice, especially with the addition of voice comms. We've known that fighting in-game harassment was going to be both something we needed to prioritize and also would be one of the most challenging issues that we would face. We've been working on systems and technologies, and we actually have been making a lot of progress. But having large global player communities presents unique challenges, evolving challenges. So we have to be ready and willing to re-examine things and hold ourselves accountable when things are not meeting our community's expectations. And that's exactly what we've been doing. She goes on to say this. I've spent the last couple of weeks reviewing player logs, looking at penalty escalation paths, discussing player behavior philosophies, seeing where they're working and where we absolutely need to do better. It's not the first time I've had to do this. It will not be the last. It's important work, but it's not always easy work. I'm a human and a parent and a caregiver and a team lead. And in almost every aspect of my life, I feel this deep responsibility to protect people. And this is no different. The responsibility of protecting our community of Valorant players is one I take very personally. And I can tell you that very often it can feel like I've failed in that responsibility. She then says player behavior is a complex problem space. Our systems cannot catch everything. They require constant attention and tweaking and improvement. Sometimes it has to be painfully manual or dependent on our players reporting things and our processes staying well tuned. And sometimes tech that has the potential to be a game changer takes longer than you want to work. All the things we say at all the things we say at Riot on the topic of player behavior are true. I want to assure you that Riot has always taken this seriously. That's been true ever since we launched League of Legends. But at the end of the day, there are still some people in this world who want to take out their insecurity or their bad day or their hate or their whatever on some stranger through their computer screen. So we work harder, we take steps forward. So again, we really have no clue what she's even talking about here. She's clearly talking about how they are policing player behavior, but doesn't provide any examples. She uses a general term, harassment. And she says people are taking out their insecurity, their bad day, or their hate on strangers through their computer screen. But she doesn't actually define what any of that is or provide any examples of that so far. So far, like this video is completely uninformative, is not providing any kind of information whatsoever as to what behavior that Valorant is finding unacceptable and that they will punish. And she goes on, though, and says this, but here's the part I can't shake. In almost all cases, someone gets hurt in the process of making these systems better. Too often, it takes someone experiencing the worst behaviors, something egregious, something painful, something threatening for us to better understand where the gaps in our systems and processes are. And that's exactly what we're experiencing and addressing right now. So what does that mean? That doesn't tell me anything. What is something egregious? What is something painful? What is something threatening? How are you defining this? You say that's what you're experiencing now and you're addressing right now, but you're not, because you're not actually telling us what these words mean to you. You're not defining what this means. She goes on and says this. I also want to make sure that I say this out loud. We have no room for these types of behavior in our game or in our community. Valorant is a team game. It's better played as a team. The strats are better. All of it's better. When you tell someone to just mute comms to avoid harassment, you are essentially putting the harassed person in a position to not communicate, to compromise how they want to play the game, to accommodate you. Muting is a tool for people who choose to use it, not something that is there to justify bad behaviors. So we finally got an example, someone telling someone to mute comms. Well, is that where we're going at here? Well, what else have those people done to tell the person to mute comms? Is the person that they're telling people to mute comms, is that person doing the harassing? Is the person saying mute comms? Are they doing the harassing? And what exactly is this harassment that they are allegedly doing? You need to define these. You need to define this in order to actually effectively communicate this. Giving this broad, generalized video doesn't do anything for me or for your player base on what they can expect and what your actual rules and policing will be. The only example we have is someone saying just mute comms. And that is something that they are clearly going to be taking an issue with moving forward. And so here, though, she says this: competitive games need to have room for banter. We believe this, and I do understand the fear that we will sanitize gaming by over addressing these issues. We have no interest in doing that. That's not what we're talking about here. But we do believe that a person should not be in a position to have to grow a thicker skin or whatever other unhelpful suggestions have been thrown out there just to avoid threats of violence or literal hate speech. So there we go. We're actually getting some clear definitions. Threats of violence, obvious, like, and one would assume that was already a bannable offense, and you had already been taking action against those things. So it doesn't make sense that these new policies that you'll be rolling out would be addressing those. That one would assume that you've already done that, right? But then we get this literal hate speech. Well, what does that even mean? Hate speech is usually used as a tool by people on the left to exercise power on people who disagree with the ideologies that they are trying to push, which are, for all intents and purposes, evil. So, what exactly are you doing here? Are you saying you are now a tool for pushing these ideologies and you will be banning any kind of pushback against it? What does that mean? What does literal hate speech mean? Does it mean that you have to affirm someone's pronouns and quote unquote transgender identity if you happen to be a Christian? Is that hate speech? What is it? You need to define this. She goes on and says, there's no room in our community for the most egregious behaviors, and we're not going to compromise on that point. Again, what are these egregious behaviors? You keep talking in generalities. The only thing we've gotten defined is you cannot say mute comms, threats of violence, and literal hate speech. We don't even know what literal hate speech means. If you need to make truly evil statements under the guise of regular crap talk to enjoy gaming, then please play something else. We won't miss you. Well, what are these evil statements that people are supposedly making in the game? Please provide examples of what you are even talking about. Otherwise, you just come across as someone who does indeed want to just silence people for trash talking, because you're not defining what you are saying you're going to police. She then says she expresses a desire to shut people's mouths. The Val community, we can't stop them from opening their mouths and saying something awful. I wish we could, but we can't stop that part. What we can do is help escort them out of our game spaces. We do some of this already. The vast majority of the time when someone says something out of line and gets reprimanded, they learn as a result of our feedback systems. They keep playing. They rarely repeat offend. Again, what are they saying? What are they saying that is quote unquote awful? Please provide examples. The number of players who exhibit these behaviors are not the majority, I assure you. In fact, they are a very small fraction of our player base. However, it has definitely become clear to us that our existing penalties are not doing enough right now to remove the most disruptive players from Valorant in an efficient manner. She then goes on to explain what Valorant and Riot Games are going to be doing. First, over the next 30 days, we'll be finalizing updates to our existing policies. This will allow us to issue more severe penalties and faster with a focus on the most severe behaviors. Things like hate speech, severe sexual content, and threats of violence, which have no room in our game. Again, threats of violence should already be at the top of the list and should be being reported to the proper authorities. You should ban them and then report them to the proper authorities. That's what you should be doing. Were you not doing that before? Who knows? Again, the hate speech, what does that even mean? You don't define it. And then severe sexual content, what is that? What is that in Valorant? How are people, I mean, is that like playing porn over the audio? I mean, I hope that's something that you've already addressed too. Like what is going on here? Second, we need strong, and if they haven't addressed that, I hope that is what she's talking about here. Like I'm trying to wrap my mind about what else that could be. Second, we need stronger tools to deal with a broader spectrum of harmful player behavior. And so we're introducing new actions This will include penalties ranging from temporary bans to permanent bans, all the way up to and including hardware bans for our worst offenders. Hardware bans are an extreme form of punishment, so we will apply them only in the most extreme cases with clear evidence and manual review, similar to how it works with anti-cheat right now. She then detailed this. Third, because we're making these changes, we anticipate there's going to be more reports that will require manual review. So we'll be beefing up the teams that are needed to support that. Fourth, we've been testing Riot voice evaluation systems in North America in English only for a while now. It's still in beta, but it's been working really well so far. Players who have been actioned upon by RVE have not reoffended at a 75% rate. This reduces the overall number of repeat offenders by a great deal. We're looking to roll this out to more regions later this year, adding support for additional languages while also taking into account local regulations on player safety and privacy. And lastly, we're going to go back and perform a one-time review of the top suspected offenders from the previous act and issue penalties accordingly. So then she kind of goes on and provides some more like generalities and thanks everyone for listening to her video. So again, it's all very broad. I don't think there's really clearly defined what exactly she's doing. It just, I don't know. It looks like we're addressing harassment is what it kind of seems like, but no definition of what harassment is. We do have this Valorant community code where Riot Games instructs players to never use hateful or abusive language. We do not tolerate derogatory comments on any player's gender, race, sexual orientation, age, mental or physical abilities, religious affiliations, or country of origin. So already that bullet point there is contradictory because you have people that live lifestyles that are contrary to people's religious affiliations. And one would assume that if someone is clearly making a point of their sexual orientation, there might be people that would be like, absolutely not. I'm not going to hear that, especially like if you have someone who's a so-called transgender person is trying to get people to use pronouns that are a lie about that person's actual sex. That would be against someone's religious affiliation. And then obviously, if that person says no, you can have the person who is this so-called transgender literally reporting them for quote hateful or abusive language. Like I can see that. So this is completely contradictory. Doesn't really make any sense whatsoever. Nevertheless, they got some more here. It says, "Don't make jokes about people. People aren't punchlines. Threats of any kind are unacceptable in Valorant. Intent doesn't matter here, and it's on you to know your audience. If you think it's just a joke, don't expect." I agree with that. You shouldn't be threatening people and then trying to claim it's a joke. That's absolutely ridiculous. You should not be doing that. That's just wrong. Don't expect someone to toughen up over your language. If you upset someone, own it and do better next time. Respect people's boundaries. I don't know. I disagree with that. I think in competitive play, playing high school soccer, playing soccer for a ton of my life, being a referee, you see players get on each other and they want to push someone else to do better. Sometimes you got to yell at them. And that works on certain people. So you don't know how it works on certain people. And so I disagree with that. I think there is room for being harsh on someone, and someone might not take kindly to that, especially if you're playing competitively, which Valorant is a competitive game. Avoid blasting comm channels with background noise, music, or spam. I agree. That's annoying. There's no need to do that. However, while it claims to not tolerate derogatory comments on any player's gender, race, sexual orientation, age, mental or physical abilities, religious affiliations, or country of origin, it also declares this: obey the platinum rule. Treat others as they wish to be treated. If you don't know, ask. Well, if you're playing with just random people, you wouldn't know how they want to be treated. So you're going to be asking every time. That just doesn't seem like you would be actually doing that when you're just trying to play a quick game of Valorant here. Respect individual differences and experiences. Valorant is a global community. Well, how do you do that? I'm not going to respect someone for lying to me about their sex or their gender. That's absolutely ridiculous. That is against my faith as a Catholic. Absolutely not. I assume that it's against other people's faiths, many other people's faiths as well. Again, contradictory rules here regarding this stuff because it's not clearly defined. My guess is that they will side on the person with the disordered sexual behavior, with the confused gender identity. The person pushing that, if you look on their website, they got a bunch of pride crap already rolling out even before June. Use spicy language with caution. If you just met, don't assume everyone will understand your meaning or intent. If someone asks you not to use a term, stop, even if you don't think it's offensive. I disagree with that as well. You shouldn't be like, if a person is a man, you're going to call them a man, even if they tell you to stop, and even if they find that offensive, because it's the truth. Communication channels are a shared space. Keep comms, focus on coordination, even if you're waiting to respawn. I'm not so sure about that either. I feel like if you're waiting to respawn, you got a couple people waiting for respawn, and you might want to just like talk about what's happening. I can see that happening as well, because the game is social, right? You don't have to always be focused on the coordination or the gameplay. So I really don't know what the point of this video was, other than basically to tell people to stop playing the game, because she doesn't really provide any details on what she's actually trying to enforce. The rules that they already kind of have in place are contradictory. We don't know what hate speech is. There's no definition of what harassment is. Obviously, certain player behaviors should be policed, and they are wrong. Like, if you're threatening violence, they should be banning them and actually notifying the proper authorities. Obviously, there's context to things like that. Maybe you don't need to notify the authorities because maybe it's not as severe. It's not as like legitimate. I don't know. I would always probably be on the side, be cautionary on that, especially if there's like context, if the person is clearly upset and angry and could potentially do something. You'd want to notify proper authorities on that. But like she says, though, that like these people are, it's a extreme minority of the population is she's saying is actually engaging in this type of behavior. So to me, the whole video seems like a giant virtue signal from Anna Donlon here about how they're just going to ban a bunch of people for things that they don't like. Again, because it's so broad, it's so general, and the one like main example is like telling people to mute their comms. That just sounds like a massive virtue signal to me, and I can only assume that people will take her advice and they will stop playing the game, because that's usually what people do. They do indeed listen to you. We've seen that with Kelly Sue DeConnick when it comes to the comic book industry. If you don't like my politics, don't buy my books. Comic book industry has all but died. And I'm referring to basically Marvel and DC. And then look at Doctor Who recently. Ncuti Gatwa told people not to watch Doctor Who, and the show is posting the worst ratings ever. So that's my prediction. People will indeed listen to what she has to say here, and they will stop playing, and they will find other games, because there are a lot of Valorant and Overwatch clones coming out. So people will migrate to a different game and will likely abandon this game and take her advice. But let me know what you guys make of this. Let me know in the comments below. As always, be charitable, especially to each other, but to always speak the truth.